What's going on, everyone? I am extremely excited today because we get to dive back into Grand Inquisitor and, more importantly, play a ton of new set 5 cards. A ton of the cards built around the raid mechanics fit so well into the original Grand Inquisitor that we got to immediately dive into it and see what we can do. Big thank you to my patrons over on Patreon, guys. We are starting to set up our actual little tournament that we'll be doing in Discord, which is going to be really exciting. And also, I have a TCG player link in the description down below for any set 5 cards. But let's talk about some new cards here in this list and what we're doing. If you guys don't remember, Grand Inquisitor ability, all about dealing 2 damage to a friendly unit with 3 or less power and immediately readying it. Really powerful ability, but you got to have the right units. With the addition of set 5, they are releasing this Nihil tribe in which a lot of them have really high toughness, low power, but raid. Obviously, on defense, they're horrible, but on offense, they are kind of hitting above the curve. So in this list, we've got cards like Aura Singh, a 1/4 for 2 with raid 2. Boom, we can ready her up. She becomes a 1/2, but with raid 2. We've got things like Strike Ship, a 0/3 with raid 3. Boom, ready him up with Grand Inquisitor, attack for 3. Things like Nihil Marauder on 3, which has a 1/5 body, but with raid 3. That one's incredibly impressive because you get to immediately ready him up and then attack for 4, which is something that you typically can't do unless it's something like Fifth Brother. Of course, gotta add the Fifth Brother, some more raid mechanics. We've got Thralls of the Coven, which is a 3/7 with raid 3. Really, really nice, similar to the old clan challengers that we were running, but guess what? Now we get a little bit extra toughness in there, so we can pop this guy in for 6 points of damage immediately readied up. And then one of the new key cards, Marchion Row, to kind of pump up all of our raid units. This allows every friendly unit that has raid to double up. So if you have a Nihil Marauder or Aura Singh, it's going to have twice the amount of raid. I'm not really convinced about this guy in this particular deck because he doesn't immediately ready up, but we're going to try him out because hopefully we can double up some raids. But another really important card in this list is actually Scimitar. This is a 4-cost space unit, 3/4, but when it's damaged, it gets +3/+0. This is amazing. So the idea here is we play the Scimitar, but then we can immediately ready up the Scimitar and then immediately attack in for a massive chunk of damage. 6 power immediately readied up on turn 3. And because of the extra toughness that we're generating with Grand Inquisitor, a new card that I'm adding to this list is Rafa Martez. This is a card that probably a lot of you haven't even seen before, but when played and on attack, you can deal 1 damage to a friendly unit and ready a resource. Because Aura Singh and Nihil Marauder have a lot of toughness, and in general, a lot of these units do, even if you're dealing a couple points of damage to Grand Inquisitor, the idea with Rafa is we're going to be able to ready up some resources by dealing 1 damage to them and then hopefully playing an additional play. We're going to see how well Rafa works out. I've been messing around in terms of play testing her, and we're going to see how it works. In terms of other cards in the deck, well, kind of some filler units, things that were previously pretty good. Fifth Brother, Zagirian Starhopper, TIE Interceptor. We've got Kamogla Heavy Fighter. We've got Darth Vader as a pilot option for some games. Surprise Strike and Grim Resolve. Grim Resolve gets a lot better in the yellow variant of Grand Inquisitor versus the Vigilance one, because basically none of these units have grit. In fact, none of them have grit at all. So if you have something like, a Nihil Marauder with 4 points of damage on it, suddenly this Grim Resolve gets +4/+0, which is incredible. Surprise Strike, no good to be dead for a little bit of interaction. Hotshot Blaster from the resource pile to get in some extra damage when we got nothing to play. And then Sneak Attack, hopefully getting immediately readied up units like Thralls of the Coven, getting in for 6, readying it up again, getting in for another 6, things like that. Let's dive into some games and see what we can do. All right, first matchup up against the double yellow Hod. Pretty standard, pretty solid unit or leader already. We're going to resource both these Vaders because we've got a bunch of ground units. And look at that. There is the Nihil Marauder. We're just going to go ahead and drop in that Aura Singh and see what ends up happening. I may want to deploy Rafa next turn, but it kind of depends on what my opponent does. And to be honest, because they're going ahead and using the Han action, I think I'm tempted to just sit back and let Aura Singh do the work. Ooh, Dr. Evazan actually is pretty exciting. So in this case, I'm actually going to resource the Nihil Marauder, get down Rafa Martez, play her, trigger the Aura Sing, just take a damage there. If my opponent goes for the attack into Aura Sing, that's totally fine. We could still play something like Fifth Brother and do some work that way. So we're just going to go Fifth Brother here, and we're just going to let it sit. I mean, yeah, they can attack. Yeah, we can go ahead and take initiative, and then we can kill off Bodhi. They can attack us for 3, so we didn't actually get to go ahead and do the whole Rafa Martez thing, but that's totally fine because we are still going to be pretty favored in this game. And actually, at this point, what I can do is just attack into the Bodhi just to knock it out, right? And it might not seem that great, but again, they have Spark Rebellion. Sure, they took no good to me dead. That's actually really, really surprising. We're just going to go ahead and drop the Kamogula Heavy Fighter. And if they take 3 to the base, that's fine. That's a lot of damage to the base. And we can actually go ahead and attack in for 3. And then, well, deal damage to our Kamogula Heavy Fighter and get in for another 3 and then pass. And now we've got the Thralls of the Coven. We've got the Rafa Martez. We got the Scimitar. I think Rafa Martez is actually looking pretty mediocre, but so is Dr. Evazan, to be honest. So we can go ahead and resource any of those. They're bouncing Millennium Falcons. One of the reasons why I readied up the Kamogula Heavy Fighter, because we have so many options here to play our units. And now they kind of want to get to that, Han Solo turn, which means they're kind of stuck bouncing Millennium Falcon and not taking out the Kamogula Heavy Fighter. But if they do that, then they're taking an extra 3 damage. And yeah, they get the Han Solo down, but does this do anything? Not really, because we can drop in a Scimitar here, ready it up immediately, and smack in for 6, right? Not even close, honestly. This game was not even close. It's not even close. Aura Sing did some work. Our opponent went for the attack in Aura Sing. That was totally fine because it put us in a position where we could just knock out things every single turn. Yeah, sure, exhaust your stuff. Does it matter? No, because we're just going to go ahead and play Scimitar, destroy the old Scimitar. We'll ready up this one, and that's GG. Even with cunning, doesn't matter. Don't need to even hit a ground unit, right? Because Han Solo, or both Han Solos, they can knock out the Grand Inquisitor, but can they deal with everything that I got going on right now? Yeah, probably not. So let's ready up Scimitar, and let's get in for 6, and that is GG. Again, not even particularly close, despite our opponent having a relatively standard hand in terms of Han plays that go. I mean, the Spark Rebellion was a little bit odd, taking no good to me dead, but, we got there anyways. Cunning in the last moment, still not quite that close. No real problems from my opponent's play in terms of what they could have done. It was just, we put in a lot of damage throughout the whole game. On to game number 2, we got Double Blue Ray. A little bit of a scary deck with Doom running around. We're going to mulligan it, and we find ourselves in a pretty awful hand. This honestly looks like a loss immediately. If we're not hitting a turn 1 play, it is going to be pretty bad for us. We do have quite a few of them, but, sometimes you just don't hit it. We're going to try to play this out and see what we can do. The Von Richtine Interceptor, not bad. Not bad. We can play this. That's a lot of Rafas. On turn 2, and we can drop a Darth Vader on it, right? That is something that we can do. Hopefully, they don't have something too crazy. But I mean, this already is a problem. They're going to be able to restore 2 every single turn. It's going to be a big problem pretty quickly. We can get the Scimitar down. Yes. Do I want to do that, or do I just want to drop in the Darth Vader? I think what I'll do is just attack him with the Von Richtine Interceptor and see what my opponent does. We just can't really risk them having like a Fell the Dragon or something like that. We're going to go with Scimitar. We're going to go ahead and ready it up. We can't play any ground units. It's too risky. They're just going to knock them out. They got the Jedi Lightsaber here, and that is pretty scary for sure. That's going to do some major damage to us. And already it's looking pretty scary for us in this game. They can go to put an experience on Yaddle, and hopefully they don't have too many other things to do. They've got, I guess, something better to do next turn. So we'll let them do that. We'll resource one of these Vaders, and we'll see where they're at in terms of this turn. Looks like they got a takedown. Sure enough, that's kind of something that I realistically expected. I can go ahead and attack in for 3 with the Von Richt tie, ready it up with Grand Inquisitor, and then put Darth Vader on it, and then use a surprise strike. And hopefully that's going to get me somewhere. Okay, let's go ahead and Darth Vader pilot. And that's an R2. Let's go ahead and surprise strike in for a good chunk. We'll deal 1 damage to Ezra, I suppose. That's 10 damage. That's a lot of damage, but is it enough? I don't actually think so. Let's go ahead and get rid of this Rafa Martez. They've got Jedi Lightsaber. They're going to get an attack in immediately. So they got a good chunk of damage here, but I think what we can do is just attack in, deal 1 damage to Yaddle, get in for 7. We have a chance here because we can 5th Brother, ready up 5th Brother, and now we can, let me just think about this. So we've ready up 5th Brother, he gets in for 4, then we ready it up again with Grand Inquisitor, and we're home free. But that requires my opponent to not attack 5th Brother with R2-D2. And they have the Jedi Lightsaber. So, too many outs for my opponent. Oh, they're attacking base? Of course they're attacking base. That's GG. Never mind. I was doing math wrong in my head. Really close despite missing turn 1 play. Really, really close. I mean, that was borderline getting there with what we had in play. So honestly, not bad, despite my opponent having a pretty perfect curve for what we're doing, right? Yaddle with the Jedi, multiple restores every single turn. That was kind of what we needed to avoid. I thought about going ahead and just no good to me dead on Ezra at the beginning, which, you know, would have avoided some of the damage here. But I was thinking that we could go for lethal. And if they immediately attack with Ezra, that means they lose a restore. And if we don't, you know, no good to be dead the Rey, they're getting it for +3 heal, which means that attack for 4, which is, you know, up to 28, plus an attack for 5, which is up to 33, plus an attack for Grand Inquisitor, which is 36, would have barely got us there. But they have the Jedi Lightsaber to finish us off. Into the next game, and honestly, this looks like a pretty nice hand. Normally, Strike Ship is not something that I'm super excited about, but up in this matchup with Palpatine here, and do I even want to ready this up? I don't think I do. I'm just going to claim initiative because, again, my opponent can just knock it out with Piet. But what I was going to say is, typically, I'm not a huge fan of the Strike Ship Darth Vader, but double green Palpatine's not going to have that many ways to actually take out my unit. So we'll see what my opponent decides to do. And we do have Darth Vader to drop on, you know, the Strike Ship. So we can pilot this. I got in for the damage first because I was worried that my opponent was going to do something else. But they went, oh, they're going to go with this. Okay, we're going to deal damage to the Strike Ship. That's totally fine. We get to go ahead and attack, pass. We deal 1 damage to the Black Sun Starfighter, get in some extra damage. And then, well, they're probably going to defeat it with Piet. So not amazing. They happen to have the Sentinel, which is the one card that I was like, ooh, hopefully they don't have. But they did, which is totally fair. This one's not too bad, though, because we can... Ooh, they have command, huh? Deal threatening damage and put it into play as a resource. Yep, that ends up being pretty good here. So I was thinking Rafa Martez, but nope, we got to go with the 5th brother here. Really, really nasty play for my opponent. Having the command just sets them up so nicely. No damage to 5th brother. Pass. We have the Thralls of the Coven, which actually looks really, really nice here. I shouldn't have resourced the Dr. Evazan. I was thinking we were going to go with a different play here, but that didn't end up being the case. So Thralls of the Coven plus Marchion Row looks pretty nice, but we'll have to see what we decide to do here. I think we're just going to get an attack immediately. Get in some damage. They're going to defeat the Super Laser Technician to then go ahead and, you know, get in some damage, which is totally fine. We're going to go Thralls of the Coven. And that's going to allow us to get in a chunk for a good amount of damage this turn. Ready up the Thralls of the Coven. Get in for 6. They can deploy Palpatine next turn, which is going to be very, very scary. Now, I can knock out Piet if they have like a Reinforcement Walker. The game is basically over. But to be honest, the way the game started with the Black Sun Starfighter, the fact that my opponent happened to have the Sentinel in that spot really changed the name of the game. So we'll have to get a little bit lucky here. Because they can deploy Palp. They can do some nasty things by stealing the Thralls of the Coven. But really the scary part would be the... Ooh, they're going to take the Thralls of the Coven. Okay, that's actually fine. We still get an attack here. Like I said, the thing I was mainly scared about was Reinforcement Walker. And I would have expected them to just immediately Reinforcement Walker had they had it, just because there's so many different things that I could do in this stage. But they didn't, which means maybe we still have an option here. They're going to go ahead and looks like, I mean, if they have Reinforcement Walker, it's really bad for us. But do they just Reinforcement Walker initially? Because Thralls of the Coven just knocks out Grand Inquisitor. So I think what I do here... Oh, do I go for the conservative route or just go for the win? What can my opponent have? They can have so many things. Overwhelming Barrage kills me. I mean, there's just so many things. I think I go... I mean, Overwhelming Barrage doesn't do it for Marchion Row. I think this is probably the biggest win percentage here, is the Marchion Row. Because Reinforcement Walker doesn't necessarily kill it, even though it would keep them alive and probably win the game regardless. Like, we can't really play around Reinforcement Walker being ambushed out with Piet. Yep, Command doesn't do it because they can give 2 experience and they cannot kill Marchion Row because of him being a unique unit, and that's going to be GG. So GG to my opponent. We ended up getting there, even with through double command and the Black Sun Starfighter to knock out our initial plan of the strike ship. I could have not ready at the strike ship and then just pass the turn and try to knock out the Black Sun Starfighter. Had I done that, it still wouldn't have been all that great for us because they had the command available. So they would have been able to put experience on and then finish off the strike ship if they were just a little bit patient. But definitely a fun game. Definitely a fun game. All right, into the next matchup. We've got a fun one here. We got a Saj ECL. That's going to be a cool one. I haven't seen that one in a long time, guys. Where are our 2-drops these days? We have just been not getting them. Do not know where they are, but that's okay. It's okay. Let's go to Mulligan. And okay, we've got ourselves a Zagarian Starhopper. That's all I am really asking for. Do I want the TIE Interceptor or do I want the Nihil Marauder? I think in this game, going towards the space strategy is going to make a lot of sense with Asajj Ventress on the board. Hopefully, they're not going to deploy a space unit here on turn 1, and then we'll be sad. But maybe it'll be a Mercenary Gunship or something, and we're going to be totally fine. That's the goal anyways. What do you got, opponent? Turn 1 isn't too tricky. Probably only 1 to 2 plays to make. Oh, they have a little message for us. They got a Bazine Natal on turn 1. Honestly, not that scared of Bazine Natal, especially in a Asajj deck. They're going to go ahead and take the Zagarian Starhopper. Sure, they disrupt the turn 1 play. Our turn 1 play wasn't even that good, so I'm not too worried about it. We're going to drop our Von Reg TIE Interceptor, and we're going to go to town there. Bazine Natal disrupts our turn 1 play, prevents us from getting in essentially 2 damage that turn, but, well, we drew in a Surprise Strike, which is pretty nice. Surprise Strike and Aura Sting. We would have gotten the Surprise Strike regardless. We drew into the Thrall of the Coven is what we actually drew into. We're going to go ahead and ready up the Von Reg's TIE Interceptor. No time to waste here. They've got No Good to Me dead. It's fine. Again, my opponent doing the no to good to me dead type stuff is really not what we're worried about at all. We can go Fifth Brother, kill off their Bazine, even prep for killing off Asajj. Honestly, again, don't really care about the damage. We have a 30 HP base. They're playing, these weak units and some events that don't really matter all that much. So I'm not really worried about it. They've got the Asajj deploy way earlier than we have our Grand Inquisitor deploy, which is relevant. They're going to get their Bazine exhausted here. We're going to get our Von Regtai up sooner rather than later, which is nice. And we'll see what we can do. They've got Moff Gideon, which is a little bit scary, actually, because it's going to mean that if they get an attack in, we will have more expensive units. But I think that's okay, because we can go with Fifth Brother. And now, if they choose to take initiative to try to guarantee that Moff getting an attack, then they're not going to be able to deploy Asajj and get an attack in with it. There's a trade-off here. I can see them just taking initiative here to try to disrupt my pattern, which they decide to do. But we don't really care about that, because we may just go with event into event and then go to town that way. That is a total of 12 damage. Actually, not 12 damage. It's 13 damage. Because of the Von Regtai giving us raid 1. We've got double Fifth Brother. They can attack with Moff Gideon. Does it really matter? I don't really think so. They got Overwhelming Barrage. That's going to be a problem. Overwhelming Barrage is pretty much going to wipe the board here. And we don't really have a solution for that. That pretty much takes control of the whole game. But unfortunately with us, we can't really deal with that anyways. There's no way to play around it when you're playing Grand Inquisitor. Unless you just kill off all their units, which isn't really something that we're built for. So we'll just go ahead and deploy that Fifth Brother. They'll knock it out with whatever they choose. Could be Asajj, could be Moff Gideon. Doesn't really matter. They had the OB, and that's something that we were a little bit scared of. They're going to attack Fifth Brother. They're going to get in the damage. Sure. Nothing we can really do about that. Hopefully we draw something like a Scimitar would be amazing. Zagrean, Starhopper, and Strike Ship. Strike Ship's actually not bad. We're going to go for the Strike Ship. Strike Ship down. We're going to try to go that direction. Another Overwhelming Barrage is going to wipe us out, though. There's Darth Revan's lightsabers. Nice. Love the Darth Revan's lightsabers. I've been trying to build a Asajj double yellow again with the Darth Revan's lightsabers and things like that. It's pretty awesome. Geonosis Patrol Fighter coming down. Sure, they're going to bounce our Strike Ship. This is one of those games where our opponent just kind of has everything for what we're doing, and they're just kind of destroying every single step of the way. The Bazine wasn't too bad, so I wasn't too worried about that. And nope, they attacked with the Moff Gideon, which means that we can no longer play the Zagrean Starhopper. But as I was saying, they just kind of have everything right now to deal with what we're got going on, which is a real big problem. They're going to attack our base. I think that's smart. I think there's no reason to do anything else. We can go ahead and give Strike Ship a little bump up here, but it doesn't really matter. They're going to knock us out here on the next coming turns. We can go Surprise Strike in for 6, pass. I mean, we are really close to actually just closing out this game. It's just a matter of my opponent just having a little bit too much disruption in the matter of Overwhelming Barrage. Realistically, Overwhelming Barrage was the key. Steadfast Battalions, not something you see all the time anymore. That was pretty sweet. Hey, sometimes you just get Steadfast Battalioned and you just get knocked out of the game. This is going to be end of the game here for us. We're going to go Prize Strike in. Well played for my opponent. Love the list. Love Asajj, by the way. We're only 3 damage off, despite everything my opponent decided to do. And as I mentioned earlier, the Overwhelming Barrage is something that's really difficult to play around, just because we have low toughness units when we're using the Grand Inquisitor action. And if we're not using the Grand Inquisitor action, then they have a 4 to deploy leader, and we have a 6 to deploy leader, and that just is horrible kind of situation for us to be in. So GG for them. Really, really sweet list. Love the Moff Gideon. Love the Asajj. Big Asajj enjoyer. So great to see. All right, into the next matchup. And I feel like I recognize this name. I feel like we just got absolutely destroyed before recording. They were playing a Kanan deck, and we missed our turn 1 play. Before I started recording for this video, testing out the deck, it was real tragic to see how brutal everything was up against us. But anyways, let's see what they've got here with Anakin Skywalker. They got the R2 play. We're going to go with Dr. Evazan. Dr. Evazan's really scary up against Anakin. Not our favorite turn 1 play. They may have, you know, the new... what's that striking card with the dark trooper on it? Oh my gosh, I forgot that. But the defeat, you know, a unit, which is going to be pretty good. Here we can go with the 5th brother. Village Protectors, obviously, again, amazing card up against us. We'll see what they've got. We'll see if they decide to use the Anakin action at all. Looks like they don't, which is actually pretty nice for us. We're just going to claim initiative, and then they can kind of do a lot of different things here. But we can go ahead and attack into Village Protectors and then kill off the R2 at least, which is going to be pretty nice for us. Pretty nice for us. Not amazing, but it is nice. They can go ahead and use the Anakin action, knock out Dr. Evazan if they want, but at least they're not going to get the resources back, which is going to be pretty good. Talk out Dr. Evazan. Sure. We're going to go ahead and play that Kamogula Heavy Fighter. Make our opponent take 3 indirect damage, and then ready up the Heavy Fighter. Probably. We'll see. Okay, so they've got Yoda here. Ooh, they got Force Throw. Ugh, Force Throw is real bad for us. So they have the Yoda plus Force Throw combo, which is fine. I took initiative because I was thinking, okay, maybe we could do something cool here with, you know, 5th brother knock out Yoda so they don't start restoring. If they have another Force Throw, it's going to be real tricky for us. The question is, do I want to risk the Force Throw? I don't know if I do anything but risk the Force Throw. I don't even know if we can even win here. We kind of need to get damage in with the Kamogula Heavy Fighter here. So that's what I'm going to do. Get in with it. Ready it up with the Grand Inquisitor. They have Kanan, which means 1 resource for Force Throw. Again, I don't think we have many options. I think we do need a pump because of the restore here from Yoda and Kanan. It's going to be real difficult for us to win without getting in all this damage. Let's go ahead and attack. Get a damage over on Yoda. Play the Aura Sing and then pass. Looks like we got Sneak Attack. Surprise strike. Not a great hand to find ourselves in. Hopefully they don't have a removal for the Kamogula Heavy Fighter. They do. As per usual, let's go ahead and smack in with the Aura Sing for 6. They can kill it with Kanan. This is probably pretty over here at this point. They happen to have the Force Throw, which was pretty good. They had a nice Sentinel start, and that's really all you need, to be honest. We're going to go with Hot Shot Blaster. We'll knock out 5 points of damage on their base. The restoring, the removal, the Force Throw, all of it kind of just good against us, right? Kind of just good against us. Not bad, though. Not bad. Couple of draws. If they weren't restoring as much as they were, I would feel like we were in a much better spot. Ooh, the open fire. That's going to finish it off. GG to my opponent. Well played. All right, looks like we're back, but my opponent has got the Kanan deck back out for some showings. Let's see what we could do here. I think Sneak Attack. I think Darth Vader's pretty weak here. And I also think Sneak Attack's going to be pretty weak. Our opponent's got the initiative, which is a little bit scary. Ooh, okay. We're going to go Dr. Evazan. Yep, Dr. Evazan coming into play here. Dr. Evazan not bad against Sabine. Not bad at all against Sabine, really. But we'll see what they follow up with. It's very scary to start with Dr. Evazan in certain matchups. Okay, they're just going to go ahead and get in with the Sabine. We're just going to knock out Sabine then. They're going to open fire. Sure. We're going to go 5th brother. They're going to be able to play multiple plays this turn. We probably just want to knock out the Ezra as well, which is a little bit awkward. They happen to have the open fire, which was pretty good. You know, sometimes you just can't avoid some removal, right? It just happens sometimes. We'll see what my opponent's got to follow this up. You know, they've got, it looks like the attuned Fear Knock. We're going to go with the Scimitar. You know, Scimitar's not bad. They're going to play multiple plays this turn. We're going to get in for 6. I do like that situation going on. And then we're going to hope they don't have anything too crazy as the last card in their hand. You know, we've dealt with quite a bit of plays already. My opponent got to do a double play despite Dr. Evazan trading pretty nicely. Thrall of the Coven is a nice pickup here. The question is, do I want to go with that or do I want to go with something else? Because I can go with the Darth Vader here. And that looks pretty good. Ooh, okay. So they have... Yeah, they have the Sabine's Masterpiece, which is very scary. Okay, let's go ahead and... I think we go Rafa Martez into Darth Vader. So now what they can do is decide to attack my Rafa Martez. But if they do, they may want to put a shield token on one of their ground units first. And if they do that, then we can knock out Sabine's Masterpiece with Darth Vader. Oh, nope, they're going to still go with the original strategy. Okay, let's go ahead and pilot this onto the Scimitar then. Okay, they're going to trade off with Rafa Martez. I'm surprised they did that instead of just going ahead and trading off. Because what I'm going to do here is attack into Sabine's Masterpiece. Deal 1 here. Deal 1 to the Sabine's Masterpiece. And then be able to knock out their whole board. And then have the Sabine's the Scimitar left over, which is going to be pretty awesome as well. And now we've got Thralls of the Coven, which can come down, ready up, play Grand Inquisitor, attack, ready up Thralls of the Coven a second time. And that's pretty scary. And we still have the Scimitar on the battlefield as a 9-powered attacker. So I'm liking our game plan right now. Still, would have been fine if they had gone with the attuned Fear Knock attack first. Then they would have been left with Sabine on the battlefield, which would have been better than nothing, of course. If I had gone with that strategy. Of course, I might have just gone ahead and attacked into their base instead, because I technically don't, or lose my Scimitar to the Sabine's Masterpiece, which is nice. Did my opponent leave? I don't know. Did they leave? Leave without saying GG. Opponent. Maybe they're thinking. Maybe they're trying to figure out how to beat this Scimitar. I don't know. They got 5 seconds left. Well, my opponent, they crushed me the first game with the Anakin. This game, we fought back. As I mentioned, they were playing this exact deck when I was talking about the Anakin matchup earlier, when I was testing for this video, or testing for the deck to record for this video, and they kind of annihilated us. We missed our turn 1 play, and they just ran through us. This game, though, did a lot better. Into our next matchup, we got a matchup against Kanan Tarkentown. I'm a little bit nervous about this one. I'm going to keep this in because I'm going really risky. I'm going to go Zygerian Starhopper and then ready it up immediately. And I'm going to hope, ironically, that my opponent doesn't actually go for the Tarkentown, which is kind of like a weird hope. But I'm hoping that because I'm blatantly using the Grand Inquisitor ability right off the bat, that they won't actually just use their Tarkentown. And maybe they're trying to save it for something better, which is a totally reasonable thing to consider. But if they do that, then we're kind of screwed, for lack of a better word, because they could Tarkentown away, and then we have no play this turn, which means that we are in trouble. Looks like they went with the, hey, you got nothing over there. I'm betting on you have nothing. And they just Tarkentown it away. Totally reasonable play to make. As I said, we could have mulliganed for a potentially better hand, but then we would have had a chance of not getting a turn 1 play, which would have been pretty bad as well. So this has a lot of scenarios where it's bad for us, but a lot of scenarios that's pretty good for us. just a matter of, kind of what ends up happening at the time. So Scimitar, pretty good, but not really up against A-Wing. Having an A-Wing in the opposing side of the battlefield means that we can't really ready up the Scimitar. If we do, then they just take it out with the A-Wing. So pretty bad hand up against Kanan. They got the takedown. Sure, they're playing the controlling game. Totally fine. Very, very good in this style of game for them. Let's resource this no good to me Den. We can't even sneak attack out anything too strong this turn. And we can't sneak attack Vader out. It's not really all that powerful. I can go Nihil Marauder, which I guess I will. Again, not really that excited about this. Pretty bad hand overall. Force is with me. Probably just knock out the Nihil Marauder. Fair enough. Yep. My opponent kind of got the answers this game, which makes a lot of sense. But we also took a gamble with the Zygerian Starhopper. I think in general, you kind of want to use Target Town early anyways. So totally makes sense that my opponent decided to do that. Here, I think we're just going to go ahead and resource this Dr. Evazan. And I'm just going to drop in the Darth Vader as a unit here. The decision there. Do I gamble on them not using Target Town? Or do I gamble on just going ahead and mulliganing, which is a little bit risky, right? Let's go ahead and deploy ourselves a Grand Inquisitor. I could have also, they go Sabine, we go Zygerian Starhopper. We could have done something that, like that, where we are able to take initiative and then do something that way. But would that have worked? I don't know. That might have been the game plan instead. Take a little less risky strategy. We don't really have an option out of this game. That might have been the plan. I was going for the risky plan. There's a lot of different things I could have done in the early game, I think, in this game. But my opponent, they just got the snowball. And that's what Kanan's really good at, is once you get the snowball down, you just keep putting shields on, and it is difficult to come back. And that's the beauty of Kanan right there. All right, so what did we learn with Grand Inquisitor Yellow? Well, it was a lot of fun. And there are some powerful things with the deck. I think there's a lot of things that can be improved, though. Marchion Ro, as cool as it seems to be, I don't think this is, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, necessarily the way you want to go. Also, Rafa Marquez didn't end up scoping up so well. I think this has a really high potential, high upside, but in a meta where your opponent's going to be playing a lot of ground units, being able to interact with your units, this card is just a little bit too slow. I think these two cards definitely underperformed. The cards that really did well, in my opinion, Scimitar, Thralls of the Coven, great additions to the deck. Aura Singh also did pretty well, and the Nihil Marauder also pretty solid units. I think you want to back this up with more things like Waylay, more disruption potentially. Even you could consider upgrades like Fallen Lightsaber, or you could even go, we have Hotshot Blaster, but you could even go with like Ruthlessness, because that'll put you at 3 power for both the Nihil Marauder and Aura Singh, which means you could potentially get in 4 additional damage with the Grand Inquisitor's immediately readied up action. I think Grand Inquisitor is really awesome. One of the nice things about Vigilance, though, is you have a little bit more tools to deal with all the interaction. And Yellow has less because you're the one being disruptive. And with Grand Inquisitor, how many actions you have to take that can kind of knock you back. I definitely think there's a few games there where I could have played a little bit less risky, but that's kind of the name of the game. I was going for some of the more risky plays in some of those games, and sometimes it'll pay off, sometimes it won't. Sometimes you can't go for those because it'll be super low win percentage, but hey, I wanted to go for the cool play, and sometimes you just don't get there. We also got absolutely dominated by Asajj Green. I guess not really. They were 2 damage short, but it was pretty sweet to see an overwhelming barrage completely wipe our board. So pretty sweet stuff there. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all for the next one.